Welcome to Keith and the Girl. I'm Keith Malley.
I'm Chemda.
You remember the story about Elin that wrote in, Elin?
Sure do.
Remind me, please.
All right. Elin got a divorce about a year ago, and then 6 months ago, she started dating a new person. The relationship, the divorce has a 5-year-old child. They still co-parent here and again, maybe taking them to the movies together. And the new relationship is having issues with her being with that other guy because he thinks that she might have feelings for him and she needs to separate and parent on her own, and they're divorced. And then come to find out through our forums and the feedback after that show, when he co-parents with his ex, he's the one who's feeling that kind of way. Am I right?
That's the update I want to tell you. Ellen wrote on the forums. Let's see here. Ellen here. I think that putting my daughter by the way, I have stepkids. Enjoy that part when you're not included. Holy shit. I also think that putting my daughter first is the only right thing to do. Of course. Another reason we spend time together is also because, spends time with the ex, because I have the child almost all the time due to the father's work schedule. Since she only stays with him every other weekend, I think it's important for both of them to see each other, plus we live 10 minutes away. New boyfriend thinks it's a bad excuse, as I should just leave her there for a few hours without actually joining in. But for the time being, she's super hypersensitive about the whole one-parent leaving part. She'll have a complete breakdown until I return. I want to give her time to adjust to the new situation and make sure she gets time with her dad. And regarding him projecting about his own behavior around his ex, yep, even though it's been 10 years since their divorce, he says that he still notices small sparks when he's around her that reminds him of why they got together in the first place. How would you even say that if it's true? Get a therapist. Why would you even say that? Picture Kyle said to me, yeah, you're the one, and my ex is a loser. He's not around. But once in a while, I can see this. There's a connection where it's like, I get why I loved you. And I'm like, thanks for the honesty. Good to know that.
I would sooner say, I get why I don't have to look at my child and hate you. That's maybe more.
He says he still notices these small sparks, hence why he doesn't believe that there's nothing there when I spend time with mine. Well, we all knew it was jealousy or trust, right?
You either trust them or not. Also, it's such a new relationship, and you are doing so much adulting right now after divorce and with a child. If to me, if you have a child, the question is, are we thinking of the child, or are we thinking about, how much time we get to spend with each other and all this other nonsense that's too hard?
Boyfriend is a sensitive musician. Sensitive always sounds like meek to me, right? And this guy doesn't sound too meek to me.
Sensitive sounds like turning your words around to make it seem like he's trying.
Right. Boyfriend is a sensitive musician and is going through his own shit due to depression. So I'm trying to be understanding and give some slack. But this whole thing about making demands about the way I handle my broken family stuff, it might be the nail in the coffin. And I said, I think we need to hear his music first. That would make it very clear, by the way, an MP3.
A lot of people got away with a lot for charisma and music.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You'd most likely enjoy his music, she said to me. Oh, boy. Well, then what can I tell you? So let me add on to the list, by the way, she writes, by mentioning that he's anti-vax
Oh, boy.
and gave me herpes.
What?
Who's the asshole? She says, I think the answer here is I'm an asshole to myself.
Oh.
Get out of here, this guy. Get the fuck out. Goodbye. And now you're free and I can respect you, Ellen. Good, because I was afraid we'd run into a party. It's possible. We're young. And I see you and him and I'd be like, I can't respect either of you. So
what a very, very difficult realization. And to do that via email with us back and forth, go you.
And you're welcome.
Yeah, of course, yes. Thank you, Keith. All the time, everywhere,
Still
all at once.
to keep you company. You're gonna be just fine. Today's guest, Hemda, has a fascinating story. Was in prison for just barely 20 years. 20 years in prison. Gets out. He's talking about prison reform. And we saw him online and thought the whole thing was very, very interesting. Jesse Crosson, how you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing well. What about yourself?
What are we going to say?
What are we going to say? Another day on Earth, right, Jesse? I mean, what's this? You have been out of prison, and we'll cover the whole thing, of course, for a year. It'll be a year, what, yesterday?
It was a year yesterday.
Wow.
Happy anniversary. I can't.
Thank you.
How do you even know what YouTube is?
It's a steep learning curve. I mean, it's funny because inside, everybody talked about social media. The new kids who were coming in, we were like, why would you sit there and look at your phone? There's a world, and there are girls, and there are things to do. And now I get out and I stare at my phone all day, and I'm like, I've like become a young old guy. This isn't good.
Well,
now, if you're hearing, I know if I was listening and didn't know the story, I'd be like, you got to get right away to what this guy did wrong to be in prison. It sounds like Keith Lender on this guy's side. He killed multiple little babies, but here's the thing that's fascinating. No, I'm just kidding. You finished high school. Were you good in school?
I was pretty good in school.
You went to college. You took a year off. Now, is that what people do who are doing good in school?
I took a year off before college. So
before college, okay.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I mean, I had good grades. I graduated. I was on the right track. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of searching for something, and I was really running from something. Was the easiest explanation. The idea of being in a classroom, studying something I didn't care about, basically depressed and lost, just didn't seem very appealing. So I thought I'd go out and see the world. And instead, I went out and found cocaine, and that was the beginning of the end.
How far? Where did you go to see the world? Was it
I didn't even make it out of the city. I had a plane ticket to Portland a week before I got arrested. All I had to do was get on that plane, and none of this would have happened. And I didn't get on that plane at first because we were running late, and I was trying to get everything organized. And then at the end, I was like, well, I can't do this. If I leave, who's going to take care of my customers? And where am I going to get my stuff from? And I was in this complete state of insanity that led me to not get on a plane to see somebody who was really important to me, and instead to stay in a trashy hotel room where I was holed up, with guns, and I was out of my mind.
How long did it take from point A to this point?
3 months. From taking a year off from college, working a couple side jobs, enjoying things, to just completely feral in a hotel room, out of my mind.
With how many guns? When you say guns, multiple.
I had a pistol that I carried with me always, but when we got arrested, I think there were 4 guns or 5 guns in the house.
And when you say customers, to be clear, you're talking drugs, not some other business. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was not an enterprising entrepreneur in the healthy way.
Well, when was the first time you did cocaine? That right out of high school?
I had done it, I think maybe in high school once, but I know it was over that summer, but I never had a connection. It was one of those things where I ran into somebody who had some, and it was as soon as I got a connection, that was where the clock started. That was the 3 months from there to just ruin. Because before that, I didn't know where to get it, or maybe I could have called around, but all of a sudden I started working this construction job, and the guy who drove me to work every day was a coke dealer. So every day he was like, here, why don't you just have this? And I'm thinking, oh, what a nice guy. He's so thoughtful. And little did I know, after I've given him everything and lost everything, I was like, oh, now I understand his game.
So, okay. So when you say connection, it's so funny. I'm like, oh, the drugs didn't connect with your brain until you tried it several times. I am on a different lane.
She was like, oh, on your right nostril you tried. And then you're like, that's the one, right?
That's the one.
Yeah. So until you had someone to call to get it for you.
A steady supplier, yeah.
Mm.
Are you, because you're all fucked up, hey, it's just easy. What job am I going to do? I'll sell cocaine.
It wasn't even a matter of choice or planning. It was, I don't have enough money to buy the cocaine that I need to maintain my habit, and I don't have a job that's going to make enough money, but if I can sell it, then I can skim a little bit off the top each one and make enough money to support my own habit. And by the end, I owed a guy for 6 ounces of coke because I had just gotten it from everybody else, and I couldn't call anybody because they were looking for me to get me or, get money from me. So I had burned every bridge because there was no way to support my habit because it had gotten so out of control.
Would anybody measure it? I can relate because I would steal a kebab as a waiter off each person's thing.
There you go.
Next thing you know, my habit's complete, and they paid me, these fucking idiots. Did anybody ever weigh it? And
yeah, a second to meth addicts or meth users. Coke addicts are really really particular about their quantity or quality. But what I always would say is look, you can get it stepped on when you'll have the right weight, but you'll have a bunch of crap in there, or you can get it where it's at. And they'd usually be like, yeah, I'd much rather have that.
Right.
Now, okay, so you were on cocaine. Is that what gives you you seem so comfortable in the criminal behavior so quickly? In the movies, at least, there's a montage. It feels like it took you a montage amount of time to get with the guns and the hole up and the.
Well, I think because if
I
you're
don't know
looking
why I
from an
sound
outside
100.
perspective,
I'm sorry, Jesse.
yeah,
With the
and you're
guns and the trouble.
so if you imagine like a rational decision being made, I think that's the number one thing, because we have this tough on punishment stance in this country where like if we punish people hard enough, they'll rationally decide not to commit crimes. And it's like, no, if you're talking about a feral animal and you put like choices in front of him and ask him to select, he's going to bite you. Like that's what feral animals do. So if you've been in that place where you've been completely lost and completely out of your mind and completely like driven by impulse, none of these things, none of the frontal cortex, considerations come into play. And a gun isn't about like status or coolness or adaptation. It's about safety and fear and terror and just feeling completely like under attack by the world.
And how often did you have to use the guns?
I don't know that I ever had to use the guns, but I used them once.
So the first time you used them, you went to prison.
I did.
Oh, was that bad luck, or are you it was going to end up that way like a week later anyway?
I think it was going to end up that way, one way or the other. I mean, because I had an ego like everybody else. I was out of my mind. It was a combination of terror and then like coke-fueled, confidence or belief in myself, which is a terrible combination. Because like if I just felt completely worthless or I had a strong sense of self-worth, either of those extremes would have been good. But the mix was really dangerous.
Now the big things were a house robbery, right? Were the people in the house?
We didn't think so, but someone was. The maid was there.
Shit.
Oh.
And then what do you have to do then?
Well, I didn't do anything. My co-defendant stuck a gun in her face and tied her up, and that's where we get the abduction charge. Which is, I mean, you think about the consequence of that. In our mind, we had already built it up as like a Robin Hood thing. Because my co-defendant worked for them, said they're terrible people, they only hire illegal immigrants, and they don't pay them anything, and they keep all the money they were supposed to make, and they have it in cash, and if we steal from them, it's not really like stealing from, good people, it's like stealing from criminals. And we were like, oh yeah, that sounds justifiable.
Sure.
And it's one of those kind of like necessary delusions.
And then he ties up the people who are the person who he's talking about that he's pretending to liberate, basically.
Right.
Yeah, very true. Like the irony is I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but yeah, it was a truly horrible thing.
Well, I didn't know that part of it. Do you ever think she must be feeling away now that you're out?
I don't know. I've thought about that because for that and for the shooting, which was the other side of it, I haven't had any contact with the victims, and because of court orders, I'm not allowed to. Like I can't reach out to or ask or inquire in any way.
Fair, right? I don't want to hear from you.
No, I think it's really fair, and the way it's set up is they can request like interaction, or they can request what they call the victim impact, like consolidation program, where we would go and I would be able to make amends, and like we would go to try to find some kind of resolution. But I can't initiate that contact, which again I think is very responsible, because if somebody was interested, I think the restorative justice program can be amazing. But if someone's not interested, it can be incredibly traumatic.
Right, and then the other big thing was you're being chased. It's a car chase.
Yeah.
And you're shooting back with your gun.
Yeah.
Right. Was this a civilian, for lack of better words, or was this trouble also?
We were all trouble, but that doesn't justify what I do. There's a tendency to say, oh, well, it was another criminal, so it's okay. I mean, right. I don't think what I did objectively was out of a place of fear and terror and like feeling like I was under attack, but that doesn't make it okay, because I put myself in that position of being strung out on drugs and out of my mind and not in a rational main.
I think we're more asking, were outside people invited to this sudden car chase? Where when the robbery happened, an outside person basically got involved. Here, was it issues amongst
just criminals being criminals?
Yeah, the latter.
Without minimizing it, yes. Just painting a picture of, is it the people that you tried to rob? What happened?
No, it was, so I had gotten involved because actually, so these two guys had stolen a gun from somebody and sold it to my friend, who sold it to me. And then they wanted it back, and they said whatever, and so they threatened him. And then one night they went to his house where his girlfriend was, and they were threatening her and saying, oh, you better bring us a gun or bring us money or bring us coke. And because I had the gun and because I was, coked out of my mind, I decided to play the hero and get on the phone and say, oh, y'all want to leave? This isn't going to end well for you. And we went back and forth and threatened each other and agreed to meet. And when we met, it was like one of those brief moments of clarity, like, this is a terrible idea. Like, whatever I think I'm doing or whoever I think I am, I'm clearly not. And so I left, and they chased me. And as they were chasing me, they were kind of like acting like they were going to ram the car into me and going back and forth. And when the passenger reached over his shoulder to grab something, in my mind, he was going to grab a gun. And so I pulled out the gun that they had stolen and shot them with it, which is, unfortunate.
You didn't kill anybody, for the record, right?
I did not kill anybody, no.
Were they both wounded?
They were both wounded.
How bad? Like that was the end of the car chase?
That was the end of the car chase. Yeah, they did not continue.
So, are you a good shot?
There's no conscious, like, I actually have talked to a police officer about this. It was in an officer-involved shooting. And he's like, yeah, I wasn't thinking. Like, I went through training all those years, and I was, like, screaming, and my eyes were closed, and my shoulders were tense, and that's what it was for me. Like, I wasn't even looking. I was looking across, like, my body, or reaching across my body, and just literally screaming and, like, driving tears out of my eyes.
Wait, so you didn't have time to say yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker?
That was after, yeah.
Okay.
How many huckleberries I got tonight?
Do you look at action movies a little bit different? Like, there's no time for joking right now. I'm busy crying.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, those are the movies. Would I see movies where there's just like tremendous trauma? Or I tried to watch one with Sandra Bullock, the like movie where she's getting out of prison and kept having these flashbacks, and I could not because it effed me up so bad.
I just saw that yesterday. And I imagine that is the most reality, where she is the quietest. She doesn't go like, fuck with me, no show you. She's just like, stop it. It's just, it was so unbelievable. And it was hard to, as soon as the movie, excuse me, side note, we have to talk about people who don't exist. As soon as Sandra Bullock is the one getting out of prison, and she looks like she actually came out of prison as much as a beautiful movie star looks like, and I'm like, oh, they're real about this. Okay. But the whole time I'm thinking she's the movie star. I know I'm going to be on her side eventually. I wanted to hate her as much as they wanted me to hate her up front. But it was difficult because I know she's Miss Congeniality. She's While You Were Sleeping, and I'm just like, I know that I like you. Yes. I know you're not going to fall down and go, but I know that at the end of this, there's going to be a reason. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. So am I correct? Is that a little bit more what happens?
I was about a third of the way through the movie and had to turn it off because I was shaking. So it was that real to me.
Really? And so what do you do about that? Because you just got out of prison, and I know you worked on it while you were in prison. A lot of people get themselves into what I call, because, Marvel or DC or whatever, call Hulk mode. How do you feel the Hulk mode coming on anymore?
Not so much. And it's one of those things where the anxiety comes up, but I try not to allow it to turn into action. And that's one of the reasons meditation was so important for like the kind of development and process, because I used to just react. And my whole life was me just being a pinball of whatever environment I was in. I reacted based on that first impulse. And learning that there can be a break between that, that stimulus and response, like Viktor Frankl said, that was really my learning process. But I still get triggered. Like when we go into public places, or there's a local concert every Friday where I live. And to go down there and have all these drunken people bumping in and making noise, it's like, nope, I step my back to the wall and then I leave, because this just isn't going to work.
Right. Well, you brought up the word trauma. Did you realize what your trauma was to do drugs, or just drugs so fucking awesome? They're pretty good.
I think it's a combination. I don't think that anybody dives into that kind of lifestyle. Like, I think this is how I've always found. We talk about like the Goldilocks of trauma. Like, we want to find somebody who has enough trauma that like you can understand and talk about it, but not so much that they're just completely out of their minds, but also not so little that you feel like they've been a CPA since they were 3. Like, you want some kind of balance.
And don't bum me out in the meanwhile, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely some trauma there. I've been in therapy for the last 15 years. I've been working with a Zen teacher. I've been working with like a group of people because I recognize there are some fundamental issues that are going on. And until I deal with that, like, this is going to be there. Like, if I'm not doing drugs, I'm just going to be eating ice cream. If I'm not eating ice cream, I'm going to be exercising maniacally or committing acts of self-harm. Like, until I get to the bottom of this, I'm going to continue to be plagued by it.
And have you come to a conclusion in that regard?
I just started doing IFS, like internal family systems therapy, which has been probably the most effective at like recognizing what those patterns are on the inside. Like that little kid who's 7 who's just not okay, and like, there's some personal reasons why he's not okay, and that little kid who's 13 and is just angry at the world and doesn't trust anybody, and recognizing when those voices come up on the inside. And yeah, I mean, there was some trauma there. I think we have a tendency to think of trauma as exclusively like physical or sexual. I found that emotional trauma can be far more like damaging and plaguing, because like you can break bones and they heal, but like you break emotions and you break hearts, and it like takes a lot longer to put that back together.
Do you think about being a parent? How much work that would be? Meaning, my dad was such an asshole. Luckily, us siblings had each other to talk to. We ended up okay. Right now, my girlfriend's...
Okay is relative, but we're all okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my girlfriend's kids, they're going through teenage years, some of them, and they're not so okay. it's her fault she gave too much love? Like, is there anything we can do?
I think there is. I think the first thing we can do is take care of ourselves. I look at people who've sacrificed themselves for their kids, but done it in a martyred-like way, and then they end up, tremendously guilty and frustrated and, unhappy with the world. I think the best thing we can do is model healthy behavior, and I think that's the hardest thing for most people to do. But I think you start there, and then, you show up and you set attention, and you give attention, and you set boundaries, and you kind of do these things consistently. And that doesn't mean your kid is going to be great. He's not going to necessarily win an award or be the most balanced because you have all the biochemical factors that come in. But to me, it's like if you can have that consistent hold, and trauma-informed care talks about this. Like the most important thing in the face of trauma is having at least one consistent adult figure that a child can relate to. As long as they have that one person, whether it's a teacher or a parent or an uncle or a neighborhood, whatever. Like as long as there's one person that tends to give them a much greater chance of being able to get through that trauma without being scarred by it or marked by it for life. And then if you don't have that and you're trying to put that together later, you have to be that parent or that adult to yourself later in life. And that's a really hard process to hold all those, messed up kids that are inside you and let them know it's going to be okay.
When you think your hypothetical kid is going to try coke, do you sit him down and go, only in the house with your father?
Thankfully, not having kids. I spent a lot of years planning on having kids, but I only got up to about age 12, in my mind and in my planning, because I hadn't thought that far ahead. So I have a friend who has really struggled with things in her life and is probably the best parent I've ever seen. Her daughter is just amazing and really put together. And it's been a process where she's just been really open and honest with her about the way. And she set really firm boundaries until a point. And she said, okay, you're 14 now. If you want to try drinking, okay, you can try it. These are the contexts in which I think it's okay. These are when it's not. If you want to try pot, but if I hear about you doing coke, if I hear about you doing anything else, you're not leaving this house ever again. You're going to be in the hole. Right. And I think in a way, having a balance of understanding and communication and having really firm boundaries where you see a danger, but you don't just react and say, don't do this. You say, here's why I'm worried about you doing this. And this is the example, and this is my own experience. And explaining that, I think is really important.
Isn't it funny? I feel like, Jesse would come out of prison just to be barking like a dog, but apparently he's been doing some work in prison. Do you guys do the rehearsal? now take care of your kid a little bit. Now do this, the Nathan Fielder show. So
is that you? I feel like Jesse's confused. Are you surprised at how well adjusted after 19 years?
Yeah, the guy does. Yeah, he's done more work on himself than most people, and he got out of prison, right, a year ago.
Yeah, I mean that's because I realized early on I could be a really good prisoner. I could get all the tattoos. I could join the gang. I could do everything that would allow me to be successful in there. Or I could use this as a monastery. This could be the place where I grow mentally and physically and emotionally in every way possible and become as prepared for life or parenthood or whatever situation as possible. And I chose option B because I didn't want to be a good prisoner. F being a good prisoner.
God.
That didn't get me anywhere.
But prison is going to find you, right? And you talked about, I watched a bunch of your 1-minute videos, and it is amazing because you're still in prison. You're still going to see how to make a knife out of Jolly Rancher, and you're still going to see that people are trying to get high when there's a drought for their drugs and things like that. It is amazing how you tell these stories in 1 minute. I think I was in a hole and I could have continued going. Unbelievable. Can we talk about some of those experiences?
Sure.
To be clear though, when I say 20 years, he pleads guilty. He knows, hey, you got me. It's 8 to 13 years you're supposed to get. For some reason that day they say, hey, it's 10 to 16 years you can get. The judge says, what do any of these numbers mean? He goes 10 to 16, so we'll go 16. I'm gonna double that. I don't like drugs and shootings. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't know where the law is there, but okay. Did you have a public defender, by the way, or a lawyer you paid for? Paid attorney.
Actually, I had a paid attorney. Yeah, I remember writing him years later when I was putting in my clemency petition, and he said, your case is the one that I think back on. Yours is one where I felt like there was just a fundamental miscarriage of justice. And I don't know if he just tells that to all his clients because that's a really easy line when they write you.
Right. Can I have a couple brownies in the commissary? Can you put a little money in my account?
I'm really glad.
How bad do you feel?
Yeah, right. I'm really glad you're coming out. Yours was a case I totally was, hey, not my fault.
Make your kids be doctors and lawyers, because those two people are the only ones that you don't give your money back when they fuck off.
That is true.
Yeah, so 32 years. You apply for clemency. This is something that would... it's great news, but it would piss me off. You apply for clemency, you get, hey, I'm a good prisoner. I know you don't have parole rules in my state. What state, by the way?
Virginia.
Is that true? They don't offer parole, or just
No parole for anyone sentenced after 95.
but it's been 20 years, and here's the stuff I learned. And they go, okay, you can get out. All of a sudden, when you find out, it's like you have an hour warning. You know what I mean? You're not able to necessarily adjust. Does it piss you off? Like I could have filled out the right form years earlier.
No, because it was a perfect storm. It wouldn't have happened. Under almost every administration before this one, maybe like 5 or 6 guys get clemency at the end of their term for political reasons or for, to satisfy some subgroup. But it wasn't a practice thing. So like when I put in, I didn't put it in with the expectation of actually getting it. I put it in as kind of like an act of recognizing that I can do all the work I can, but I can't control the outcome. So I was like, all right, I got to spend the rest of this time in prison. I'm going to do everything I can so I can at least sleep at night knowing that I'm here basically against my will. I've done everything I can. I can rest and know that I didn't just sit aside and let this happen. And then, Courtney, I was interviewed by a local reporter, which was really strange. And all of a sudden, like I'm all this talk and I got an article published and then people are asking about my Facebook post and like all these things are kind of going out there to the world. And I'm having people reach out and say, hey, we want to support you. Can we write a letter or how can we help? And it just grew into this kind of like citywide, community-wide thing that was really bizarre. And I started thinking like, wow, like maybe this is a possibility. I don't think so. And then the governor that we had now, or the governor that released me, he granted more pardons than every governor in Virginia history combined. So this was not like a normal practice. This was just incredibly like a fluke. And a lot of things that I'd done that it's so funny. We were part of a peer support mental health program in prison that everybody else talked crap about. Like, oh, it's a terrible idea. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing their jobs? Like these people don't care about you. And of the 6 of us that started that program, 3 of us got a pardon. And so all those guys that were talking crap about it are like, oh, wait, maybe I should do something for the right reason rather than like, looking down on it. Right. And I really actually like that idea because I think that encourages people to take advantage of opportunities and to show up and to, be of support. Not necessarily because it's going to, get them a pardon or get them out, but because they recognize, hey, if I do good things, I have a lot more opportunities for good things in my life.
Right. Now, you mentioned Courtney. I assume that's your girlfriend, right? The girlfriend you had while you were in prison. Now, look at that. This is always amazing to me. First of all, the people slicing their own wrists right now because they can't find a chick. But never mind them, right? Let's focus on us. It's about us. How do you get a girlfriend in prison? What's the move?
I mean, I had a few relationships over the years, like through pen pals, through friends of friends. The best way I can describe it is Courtney said, on the one hand, it was terrible because I didn't get to see you. But on the other hand, I got to be the center of your world and at the same time be totally free to do whatever I wanted.
Would she be mad? Like, like I wrote you 17 messages and you're a guy, so you just wrote back K. Would she ever get mad? Like, it's Thursday. Where's my letter? You busy?
Yeah, well, on the other hand, the guys in prison are the ones writing the 13 letters, and she's the one writing back K because she's got such a busy life, and I'm just sitting in there. It's a flip the script kind of thing. But so she left TV News about a year after she did the interview, and we had stayed in touch.
Oh,
they
that's
were,
how you found
They were
out.
strip searching children, going into visitation. They were just doing all this horrible stuff.
Sorry, that's how you found each other. It was an interview. Okay.
And then when she left TV, we kind of became friends. And then at the beginning of 2020, we just it kind of snapped. We had started talking. We started being together. And then, 8 months later, when I got out of prison, all of a sudden she's there in a cornfield waiting for me. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then, about a month and a half ago, we got engaged. So we've gone down the progress.
Wow. Well, that's the thing, too. I do want to go over the prison stories like Kendo was saying. But
Congrats also.
Yeah. What is that like, though? What is the relationship like? Do you ever get really pissed off in the last year at your girlfriend? You still love her, but you're upset. And then do you ever think like, maybe this isn't going to work out? Well, you know what? I'd come off like a real fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like a guy gets caught cheating, but the relationship's not working out anyway. It's like, well, now I have to stick with you because you're doing me. You're the better person.
Now, Jesse, you got a psych degree while you were in there, so you could see the projecting that's happening at you, right?
I can, yes.
Okay.
I was going to say that about the initial email, but I see it even more clearly now. So how is that relationship going for you, Keith?
It's going good, thanks. I'm just picturing, it makes me think about people that broke up during the pandemic. You might have heard of it. Who the fuck knows? But there was one once, we swear. That when people break up during like the part where you couldn't even leave your house, and I'm like, you really hate this person. Like you're making it personal. It feels like something like that, maybe, right? Sure. Like you didn't do anything offensive to her, but just do the fucking dishes. You got to live with me as soon as you got out.
It's so funny. Well, no, so that was one of the things is we didn't want to create a situation where anybody was dependent upon anybody else. So we didn't move in together until we bought a house about 6 months ago. So like I moved out, I got a little tiny house. She had her place where she was at, and we worked independently and spent a lot of time together, but like had our own space and had our own lives and had our own friends, and then slowly looked at how to build that. But what we had was the ability to communicate that most people don't have.
Slowly, you've been out a year. What's
Right?
Fair enough. But no, because we did what we called like a data dump. Like we knew everything about each other from those 8 months of like 2 hours a day on the phone and just talking. Like you can't go have sex or walk in the woods or go do anything else. All you can do is talk. And so we learned like where each other's boundaries are, where our insecurities are, like how to communicate. We set rules for how we fight. Like we had a really intentional basis for our relationship, and we still do that. Like last night we spent a long time talking about like, all right, what was your latest crazy feeling? And I was like, well, the other day when you didn't answer the phone, I was just in a car accident. Somebody T-boned me. And I called and she didn't answer. And I told her, I was like, all right, I got to tell you, my latest crazy thing was like, I was convinced you were having an affair because you didn't answer the phone for like 2 hours. And I didn't know what was going on. And she just starts laughing. She goes, you know what? That's funny because I'm convinced like you found a girlfriend on TikTok and like, that's why I've been feeling like, and so we do that. We just talk about it because if you let that stuff grow, that's where you get sick. And that's where you get sickness in your relationship. If you just talk about it and laugh about it, like that's how you grow.
Yeah. Sometimes when you talk and laugh about it, you find out that one person has been cheating.
That's another option.
Sometimes they are cheating and they just know how to laugh about it good. So just check on yourself.
When you got T-boned the other day, were you like, where's my fucking gun?
No,
For a
not
split
even.
second.
It was the sweetest, like college age girl who felt terrible and was worried. She had the worst luck. So her best friend had come up to visit her for her birthday. That night of their birthday, her catalytic converter got stolen. So they had to go to the shop to get her a new catalytic converter. And while she was riding out of there, she T-boned me. And I was just like, you just need to stay away from vehicles. This is just not working out for you.
This is why they don't rent cars unless you're 25 and older.
Exactly.
Damn.
Because you have bad, quote, luck.
But
Yeah.
What is it? What's the pandemic to you? Did you read the whole cycle about it in prison, or is it a thing?
Oh, we lived the cycle. That was the problem. The first outbreak we had in prison, we had 4 guys die. And so we're feeling captive, and we don't know if we're getting told the truth, and the officers are freaking out and just not showing up for work, and we're hearing about it was terrible. And we went from like when the pandemics, or right before the pandemic, I was living in a single cell in the honor pod. I had a good job. I was in the pod with the dogs, with the dog training program. I volunteered. I taught Spanish. I ran programs. Like I had a really full life. Like I was busy from sun up to sundown with something meaningful. Pandemic came in and they just locked the doors. Like I was in my cell for 2 months. And then slowly, like a couple of us would be out and get a shower, and a couple of us would be out to do. It was horrible. It was the
Wait,
worst
2 months
time
with
that I've
no
ever done.
shower also?
We would get a shower every 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
But like you have to go out, like you leave your cell, you get in the shower, and then you go right back. No like hanging out or doing anything else.
Do you still carry over patterns? Do you take your toothbrush to the bedroom?
I have a problem with like carrying shower and like other gear. I forget to turn off sinks because for 20 years I couldn't turn a sink off. Like you just hit the button and it turns off by itself.
Yeah, that's sweet.
I wanted to wear shower shoes for the longest time because I never
funny.
was barefoot in a shower. I mean, there are definitely some things, or like just the weird stuff I collect, like rubber bands and paper clips, because those were always like a score. If you could get those in prison, like think of all the things you can make with them. So I like see them, and my first impulse is like grab them and stick them in my pocket. And then I realize like I can go to Staples. This isn't a big deal.
Right.
But it's deep seated.
Would she see like you're sucking a Jolly Rancher in a certain way as to imply you're making a knife?
No,
just chomp on it, honey. You're scaring me. All right. Do you have like a section where all your stuff is just so? Do you cover your food when you eat it in front of her?
When I first got out, I was putting together, I got a bunch of like hygiene stuff from CVS or from wherever. And like, I looked at it and it was sitting there and like everything was ordered and neat and like all the same items and same size. And somebody made a comment on TikTok. They were like, I bet if I opened your bathroom, you'd have lines of soap. And I went in there and I was like, fuck, I got to do something about this. Like, this is not okay. Because like, this is the most, and my buddy, so I went to go pick my buddy up about a month ago. And I just went out there to spend the weekend with him to see how he's doing and hang out and ride motorcycles. And sure enough, I go into his closet and he's got all this soap. I had brought him a bunch of stuff. I'd run a donation drive and there was some stuff they didn't want to take at the local community service board. Right. So I brought him all that. And he's got all his shampoos lined up and he's got all his soaps lined up. I was like, dude, I feel like I got to mess him up. Like I got to liberate you, buddy.
Do you ever, you're by yourself, nobody's around, You ever be in the shower and just throw like 5 bars of soap on the floor, and you're like, "Who gives a fuck?"
No, but that is the most commonly asked question on social media for some reason. We are
If you
obsessed
throw
as a
soap
nation
on the
with
floor
dropping
for
soap.
fun.
Yeah,
No, they're
exactly.
dropping the soap.
Oh. Yeah, like I'm done. I dropped the soap. I'm fucking done. What's the scariest thing that happens in close to 20 years?
I mean, a lot of things. Scariest for me, like, I mean, I
Yeah.
had some conflicts, but I think for me it was more, there was a moment that I remember. I was at Buckingham and the Bloods were jumping this guy who had violated, and they just like stomped on his face for about 5 minutes on the rec yard. Like just
Jesus.
like taking breaks, going back and forth. And our job
Keep
as
time.
like other prisoners was to just like, not draw attention to it and let it happen. Right. And that was such a traumatic moment because I was horrified by what was going on, but I was also horrified by like my response, which is like, I want to stay out at rec. I don't want this to. And that was when I was like, I can't let this place shape me. Like, I can't become the person this place wants me to be because that's going to break me. Like, I'm not going to be a person who can ever go back to society. And that was the beginning of my like really conscious and intentional focus on being who I wanted to be rather than who the place wanted me to be.
There's a movie, I don't know if it's called Bad Boy, it's called something stupid. It's the who's in it? Gerard Butler, I think, or it's the knight from Game of Thrones. But anyway, this guy gets arrested. He's a tough guy. He's a badass. Gets arrested. Some gang says, "All right, you got to hide these drugs up your asshole in a balloon up your asshole." And I'm like, he just got to prison. That means like murder's gonna come. It's only gonna escalate. I think right there I'd be like, well, you gotta kill me. I thought the end of the movie would be balloons up my asshole. You ever get propositioned like that? Like, hey, do help out around here.
Virginia isn't like a racial or gang-run state, which I'm really grateful for. So you have gangs and you have issues, but it's all like everybody's independent unless they choose not to be, and there's no pressure to be in that. And I mean, people get extorted and there are issues and people get jumped and people get robbed, but there is no like institution-wide or like system-wide kind of pressure or like peer pressure.
Right. You had a guy in jail. He had a fake eye, so people would have him hold shit in his fake eye socket.
Old Man John. Yeah.
Old Man John, that would be his name. Old Man John. And one day, Old Man John is holding LSD for somebody.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a doctor. You can't put that in your eye socket.
Yeah, it did not go well for him.
He goes nuts, right? I assume.
Pretty much. I mean, he was gone. Like, we were worried about him for like 2 or 3 days, but he made it. Like, he managed to come back out of that hole somehow.
What's the deal with fentanyl, by the way? Are people just assholes nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, fentanyl's in everything. I got my friend who was just here last weekend, or the weekend before. She runs a nonprofit for anti-overdose efforts because fentanyl is showing up in weed. It's showing up in every kind of pill. It's showing up in like pretty much anything. And so it's one thing where like, okay, fentanyl's in all the heroin, but everybody knows that. Like, if you're going to use heroin, you know it's going to have fentanyl. Like, you're taking that risk, which I think is like understandable. But when it's showing up in weed or when it's showing up in other recreational, like, that's a problem because this person isn't agreeing to this. Like, you're actually tricking them when you're giving them the weed, and it's really horrible. So what she does is she gives out fentanyl test strips that you can apply and you can get free of charge. And she also has Narcan so that if you happen to smoke some weed covered in fentanyl and you happen to overdose, the Narcan can bring you back.
If they remade the Matrix and the guy goes, do you want the red pill or the blue pill? It'd be like, 1 second, I got to test it. Pulls out a strip.
Exactly.
You guys are fucking weird. Then he goes, just kidding. He takes them both. Let's get fucking nuts. They're not real pills, just to make a point. What is fentanyl? Like, is it just like rat poison, and it's so that we think your weed is better, but we're just eating poison?
It's essentially like a synthetic opiate. It's like a synthetic heroin that is significantly stronger than regular heroin, which means that people are overdosing even at low quantities.
But why are they sneaking it? I know hospitals use it, but why are they sneaking it into my drugs? Just sell it to me. You want to get fucked up? Here's a little fentanyl, and then you'll keep buying more. What is it? Why aren't you telling me what fentanyl is?
And it creates an addictive quality. So if you like that, it used to be a thing that people would cut coke with heroin, but the price point didn't really make sense. But fentanyl is so cheap that you can cut your coke with fentanyl, then people are going to be addicted not only to the cocaine psychologically, but also, biologically, they're going to be addicted to the fentanyl. And then as long as you keep the dosage right, they're going to keep coming back to you because you're the only one who has it that gets them that high or that makes them feel that way. And it's about like creating a loyalty among your customers, unfortunately.
Yeah. But people would still do drugs in jail, right?
Oh, absolutely.
How? Is that a stupid question? How? You just do it.
When you pay officers very little money and you're significantly understaffed and you have a bunch of people that have a substance use disorder and a bunch of people that sell drugs for a living and you put them all in the same place, pretty much a recipe to make sure drugs get inside.
Speaking of which, there was, and it's so interesting that I could just say these things. There was a guard, an officer in the prison system who was transferring some drugs in, right? But she started doing some of them and owed a prisoner money and said that she would exchange her body for making up for this guy. So she said that he can prostitute her amongst the prisoners until she pays him back. Right?
Well, it was at that point. It was basically so she had a steady supply of drugs because she recognized like that was her cash cow or that was her addiction cow.
Oh, so she traded him being her pimp basically to the prisoners for more drugs coming in.
Yeah.
And so she can't get it on the outside. She can,
but she didn't have the money. I mean, she makes like $16 an hour at the most, whereas the drugs she was on were very expensive.
Is by the way, you watch on TV? What do you watch? Law and Order. It's interesting. There's a lot of talking during it, I'd have to assume. Do people find it believable? Did they go, Johnny, that's what you did, you son of a bitch? Law
and Order was actually riot? Pretty well done and generally pretty realistic because it showed dumb things that people did. It showed terrible things that people did. It showed people getting framed. It showed cops being honest and cops being dishonest. Prosecutors being fair and being it was fairly realistic. So I think people, especially in prison, connected with that because it's a compelling story that's surely dramatized, but it had a taste of kind of truth to it because you see in the end justice doesn't always get done. The good guy doesn't always win. Sometimes the bad guy gets away with stuff. And I think that the kind of reality of it was really appealing, especially in the face of so many prison movies or crime movies that just glorify somebody or are just completely unrealistic.
When I pass a cop, I sometimes wonder, am I doing something?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
So the first official police contact I had the other day was when I got T-boned, and I had to give him my information. And my first thought is oh my God, are they going to come back and be this is a violent felon on probation? Is he going to draw his gun on me? I've always wondered, what's going to be. And he was the nicest guy in the world. And he was here you go, Mr. Crosson, handing me my stuff back. He said, all right, I'm going to make sure you get the report. And it was great. And so because of that interaction, I talked about that on social media. And I had about 30 police officers and about, 10 people who work dispatch reach out and be okay, we're obligated to tell them. But if it's a traffic accident, we're only going to tell them that you're under supervision. And probably about a third to a quarter of the people that they interact with are under supervision. So they're not going to care. So through this whole thing, I've gotten a glimpse into what the other side or the other experiences. And it's been really gratifying because I recognize, he's just as uncomfortable as I am coming up on a lot of situations. It's all right, let me put myself in the other person's shoes. But yeah, nonetheless, every time I drive by a cop, I kind of check my speedometer. I wonder, I had some bad habits in the past, but the biggest thing is now that I'm living a really clean and straight life, I don't have to worry about it. And that's a really good feeling. It's okay, pull me over. I'm doing 6 over the speed limit. What, are you going to give me a ticket? I can deal with that. I'm not going to prison. I'm not going to, yeah.
I picture you walk around now like Mr. Rogers. Hi, Officer Murphy.
Pretty much.
Another great day.
When I do jujitsu, which is the greatest opportunity because a guy who just got out of prison can wrestle a cop to the death and then go get coffee afterwards. And that's the best thing in the world.
Is it weird that there's weights in jail, or do we need them?
I think that if you give people the opportunity to exercise and expend their energy, you have a much better outcome than when you lock them in the cell. Because violence and overdoses and drug use have gone through the roof during the pandemic. They're still on pandemic protocol at half the prisons. When my buddy got out last month, he'd been outside twice in 2 weeks before that. You just lock people in the cell or lock people inside, it's not going to go well.
When one of my stepkids they were having an attitude, and it was a lot, let's just say. And then later, my girlfriend takes her to the gym to, expel energy, taking a boxing class. And I'm like, how about a poetry class? Why are we making these people stronger? That's all I'm saying. There's got to be something there we can work on. I get it, but,
well,
come on.
So in distress tolerance, you have this thing called TIP, which is temperature, intense exercise, progressive relaxation, and breathing. And these are the best ways we found to reduce stress. So when somebody's feeling stressed and uncomfortable, especially if they have a pattern of aggression, well, giving them the tools they need to get rid of that stress, which is going to get rid of that aggression, is actually one of the most helpful things we can do. And strangely, so we had a fight club. We had a martial arts training program that was really intense. You had to show up, you had to work your ass off, you had to leave your gang politics at the door, you had to stay out of trouble. If you were getting in trouble, you couldn't participate. And this program took a bunch of guys, and this was completely illegal and unofficial, by the way, but it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Took a bunch of guys who had stabbing charges, who had gang charges, who had fighting charges, and everybody in that program stayed out of trouble for the year and a half that we were running it. Like, everybody got their nose clean. And what we saw was that if you give people a sense of community, because at the end, every time we'd have a circle where everybody would sit down and they would talk about it, what they were going through, like, it was a bonding experience.
After
and
you
all
punched
these
each
people that we
other?
were worried about. Do what?
After you punched each other, you sat around and talked about it?
Absolutely.
I've been in a
Shut
mosh
up.
pit that somebody took the wrong way. I don't know that I need a fight club in prison.
Wow, so that never went wrong? It never went sideways?
We were really strict about it because, like I said, and it wasn't just a fight club. It was a training thing. You would have to train consistently for that 3 months or that 6 months to be able to have a match. So your thing, we were testing you to see if you would stick with the workout because we had this old guy named JC who was a fucking monster, like in best shape I've ever seen. And he would take guys on laps, make them do, barrel walks and all these things. And if they ever broke, it was like, okay, is he going to get back up? And if he's not going to get back up, like, he can't join the group. And if everybody lost their temper or they had trouble or they were getting into it, that's why you had to keep your nose clean. Like, if you're getting in fights, you're not welcome. And what we did was we essentially changed people's behavior by setting really strict boundaries around something they wanted to do and then giving themselves a sense of, like, agency and control and power in their own lives so they didn't feel like they needed to get that power and that control somewhere else.
Wow. Amazing.
So
How
you
many
can
fights
fight
have you
now,
been
right?
in?
You can,
Yeah.
you can fight.
I
Right?
hope so.
Yeah, of course.
Have you been in over 20 fights, physical fights?
In my life?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. How often do you come out okay in those fights? Are they over pretty quickly?
Yeah. I mean, we have this Hollywood idea that fights are going to last a long time. And strangely, of all places, I saw... So there were these, like, respect fights in prison, which wasn't even about, like, actually trying to hurt the other person. It was like, oh, you made me look bad, so I got to, like, get off on you. And, like, guys, literally, I remember watching two guys fight for, like, 5 minutes and then, like, take a break and get some water and go back to fighting. And I was like, this is insane. Because every real fight I've ever been in has been over in, like, 30 seconds or less. Like, win or lose, it's over. There's none of this, like, gauging people out. There's none of this, like, the John Wayne stuff.
Why are you keeping up with your workouts after being out of prison for a year?
We did a little CrossFit workout this morning, which I was good about. I've been going to jujitsu. I was going 6 days a week at first. Now I'm going 4, but I had COVID 2 weeks ago. And then this week I got all this
too.
travel. I'm going to testify and I'm going to be an expert witness in a sentencing hearing for a guy who's facing life tomorrow, actually, which I'm really kind of grateful for the opportunity to do because people don't know about it. Like, the judges, the juries don't know about what goes on in prison. They think, oh, well, they're going to go there and get the help they need. And so they asked me to come in and speak about what actually happens and, like, whether this is actually going to get him the help that he needs. And I hope to show them that it's not. And that, it doesn't mean that he shouldn't go to prison. It doesn't mean that we should, make everything better. But we need to realize what's really going on and have a conversation about it.
What was his crime?
He was murder. But his situation was almost the same as mine, where he was being chased and he was scared and he shot the two people who were chasing them. But whereas they lived in my case, they died in his. Right. But fundamentally, we did the same thing. Like, I had no control over whether those people I shot lived or died. Like, that was completely out of my control. So to say that he's more culpable and should spend the rest of his life in prison and can't contribute and is completely worthless and irredeemable is to say that about me. And I don't believe that about myself, so I don't believe that about him.
Do you have the same lawyer that you had that got you 20 years? No? Okay. Because I picture, I know me, like I just read a story like in Dubai, someone got murdered for kissing their girlfriend. Let's see, what else? What did I just read today? Dubai residents can be fined up to what's equivalent to $135,000 if they rate shit online that insults another person. That's something I wouldn't know ahead of time. So anyway, my point is, do you say to somebody, hey, what is the law? Like, yeah, I got my pardon. Is that really the end of it? Should I even speak about prison reform? Should I start doing YouTubes and TikToks? I'd be like, what are you working on? Oh, I think the way you held me for 2 decades was wrong. I have ideas. Oh, you have ideas. Oh, you have ideas. Well, here's my idea. You're back in jail. Did that concern you at all?
It did. So the first time my parole officer, my probation officer, mentioned my TikToks, I was like, all right, what do you think? She said, I love what you're doing. We need to talk about this. There's nothing for guys getting out. Like, I'm really glad you're doing this. And that made me feel a lot better.
Okay. All right, good. I want to mention this in front of Hemda because she makes fun of me for this. When I was in the Army, somebody heard a story that you can smoke the inside of banana peels and get high. You can scrape out the insides and then you smoke them. Now, I was a higher rank. I didn't do the actual work. I need everybody. But she still makes fun of me that I did smoke it. Are people smoking banana peels in prison? Jesse Crosson.
Your assistant forgot to dry it, Keith.
Right, we let it sit. I think they let it sit, but they are indeed getting high on banana peel. How does that work? I don't know why it didn't work for me.
Well, fortunately, there are a lot of drugs around, so most people just do the drugs. But on the rare occasion that there's a drought, everybody's fiending for something. So they'll eat nutmeg or they'll smoke the inside of banana peels. And I've never done it. Thankfully, there were a number of things I never did that seemed like a really bad idea. And I was actually smart enough at that point to listen to them. But yeah,
well,
guys were convinced that it would
me,
take the edge off. We used to have heroin addicts who would just shoot water. They would just shoot clear. They would shoot whatever they can just to get the experience of shooting because that gave them the kind of stimulation of the memory of shooting dope.
Fuck out. Is that dangerous? I mean, it can't be good, but is that just more water in your system?
I mean, it's no different than having water that's full of heroin. It's an IV. It's a medical procedure.
Okay, so what does nutmeg do? You could just eat it, or do you have to cook it, or
you just eat it? It's like it's not even a hallucinogen. It makes you it induces almost like a psychotic episode. So I guess technically it's like a hallucinogen, but it lasts for fucking ever. That is one that I did that I sincerely regret. You just feel like you're dissociated and things are really trippy, but it doesn't go away and you're profoundly uncomfortable for like 6 hours. And it is horrible. And the fact that people did it once and then did it again lets me know that we are truly desperate to escape whatever experience we're having, because no like happy, healthy person would do that once and do anything other than I'm never doing that again.
Right. Now, what's the biggest thing that not to make it so simple? You have time. What's one of the bigger things you're working on with prison reform?
I just started a nonprofit and we got some funding. So the Second Chancer Foundation is going to start providing reentry services here in Charlottesville, and we're looking within the next couple of years to scale statewide. And then we have a partner organization we'd love to scale nationally with. And I'm really excited about being able to provide the services that just aren't there, the cracks that are in the system where we basically
Where were you supposed to go? Hey, you get to leave. Where were you supposed to go if you didn't have family? It wouldn't matter, would it?
Well, I wouldn't have gotten a pardon. They literally wouldn't have let me out the door. But yeah, I've got a buddy who gets out next month who has nowhere to go. And so he's going to go to a homeless shelter if he can find one. They told him there are no halfway house beds for the rest of the year until maybe January or February. So they'll put him up at a hotel for a week or 2 weeks. But like I know in Charlottesville, it's a 3 to 6 month waiting list for the homeless shelter. So he'll get out, he'll have a week or two in a hotel room, and then he's going to be on the street.
Yeah.
Wow. So and people try to escape as well. Did I get this right? 3 people while you were in prison tried to escape the prison you were in, and one actually succeeded.
Jew Baby got out. That the time he was successful was before I got there. The second time he tried, so he was out for about 5 years.
I'm sorry, 1 second. We're talking about Jew Baby?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
So he and by the way, it's spelled Jubaby, just
Sure.
So he got out, was successful. He was on the run for about 5 years and actually went back to break one of his buddies out, got caught. This was 15 years later, tried to break out again, but at this point he's like 60 years old. He's not young and healthy and virile.
Everybody wants company, yeah.
He got caught, but how do you break out of prison? Like, how do you even think that there's a way? Is there
the laundry, right?
The guy who got out of Dillon, so I wasn't there, that was across the street, the one who was successful, he just managed to be outside the building at night, and you have 3 fences, and you have razor wire, and they generally assume the razor wire is going to be enough because it'll tear you up. Well, he got out, but he ended up losing, I think, 5 or 6 fingers, because even wearing gloves, even doing whatever, the razor wire cut his fingers so badly they had to amputate him at the hospital. So he managed to break out of prison, get more time on his sentence, just to lose 6 fingers and get 5 more years. Like, that's the equation.
Now, I don't want to say... Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't what?
This isn't like Ocean's 11 where like the helicopter comes in and everything's clean. Like the guys who get out, it's really ugly. Like we had guys get out of Mecklenburg, out of death row back in the 80s or 90s. They like made a fake gun and managed to break out and were out for a little while. But like that was the end. They put all the Sally ports in place. They designed the system to where it's not an easy thing to do.
But this guy, when he escaped prison and his hand was messed up, he went to his mother's house, right? That's where they caught him. I think even I watched enough movies, and I don't want to speak ill of people who can kill me, but that seems like an obvious one not to do, or like where else do you go? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, I think that shows that we have this idea of criminal masterminds or people who make rational decisions towards some kind of criminal action. In reality, we have a bunch of like mental and emotional children in adult bodies who've been around violence and trauma their whole lives and tend to act out of that experience.
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
Right. Is there a certain, what's the next big thing that you got going with your organization? Is it the
We
person in death row? Is it?
Well, no. So what I didn't realize, I thought, oh, let me start a nonprofit. This will be great. And things have fallen into place. Like we got 501c3 status. Like we've got everything in place. But I'm still dealing with like liability and officer and director insurance. And then as a contractor rather than an employee, I have to get my own liability insurance. And then I have to. So what we're hoping it'll be about the next month to put the programming together to make sure we're ready. Once I can hire the guy who's actually going to run the program, but I can't hire him until we have the insurance, which is frustrating. And then we're going to start. It's going to be a 13-week run of reentry programs with about 5 to 6 people as kind of a pilot program. And then we're going to do a month to kind of reestablish, do all our exit or entry and exit surveys to figure out, make sure this works. Then we'll possibly look at like a grant for the programming based on the evidence that we have from that pilot. And then go into full operation, and again, hopefully be able to provide these services to people that need them the most, because it doesn't make sense to let people out of prison who are unprepared for the world and then wonder why they go back.
Do people mistake your kind demeanor and, very gentle conversation for maybe weak? And do you have these thoughts where it's like, I was in prison for 19 years. I'm still in shape. Do you have?
Not really. I mean, I have plenty. People talk a lot of crap on social media. I've never had anybody talk crap in person. And if they did, I would just walk away, even if it hurt my ego, because, I mean, I learned that inside. Like I said, it got to the point where, like, sometimes you don't really have a choice. But the vast majority of times, I realize it's not worth it. Like, whether it's something happens to me or something happens to the other person or it's just a consequence of that action, it's not worth it. I mean, I almost got killed, basically, I don't know, like 4 days into my first real prison. Like, got my head slammed on the ground so hard they thought my skull was cracked. And it was like, this is serious. Like, this is not a game. This isn't just like some fun thing. And that was what it took. We got a guy named Lamont Kane who killed a guy with one punch. And it's like, I don't think I want to do this. Like, this doesn't make sense. So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have like a sense of comfort around violence just because it's inevitable. It's part of our society. But yeah, the people who take it really lightly or the people who think it's fun or think it's all about respect, like, I think that they're going to, they'll live by the sword, die by the sword thing.
Well, it's amazing. 20 years ago, you entered prison. We started our podcast 17 years ago, and people were like, the internet, you're on that nerdy thing, podcasting, that there was none of this. So we didn't have a computer in our hand. We still had, old school phones. They weren't necessarily on the internet. Maybe you had like that Snake game or something.
Yep.
How much do you have access to that on the inside, or how much of a shock was it that cars don't have keys anymore? I mean, I'm still getting shocked, and I've been out here. How did that go?
You drive by the Tesla person, he's sitting there reading a book, and you're like, so I think the thing that helped the most with the kind of transition was they started selling tablets, which are just decommissioned phones or like old Samsung Galaxy phones with all the cell and the Wi-Fi stuff taken off of it. And then that's set up to, do your email or do your music. But it's only through the JPay platform. It's not like you have any internet access. You can't go anywhere else. But you use like an Android platform. So you get an idea of, okay, this is what apps are and this is like how you type on the thing. And I was really grateful for that because I got to get out and I was like, oh, this is like my tablet. Like I can do this. But I think people who got out before that, and I think some people, like, you've got this kind of old class of guys. There's still a guy who's got a cassette player at Buckingham. Like, he's devout. He's not giving up that cassette player. He's not going to a tablet. I think for those people, it's just an incredible shock. And I mean, I didn't know what TikTok was or what. I mean, I knew what these things were in theory. Like, I remember when the pandemic started and Zoom stock boomed. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Everybody's working on Zoom. We should like buy Zoom stock. That makes sense. But the idea of actually experiencing it, or the things I'm still like, the other day I ordered a pizza for the first time, like, because I haven't been able to order a pizza and I didn't even know you could do it online, and it's shocking. And yeah, I mean, I still on a daily basis am surprised by things, even though I generally think I know what's going on. I think ultimately I don't.
And my order came wrong, but how wouldn't it? It's still amazing. Even if
it was
for
amazing.
Company. What do people that do shit on you online, what are they mad at? That somehow now you're getting praise, but you pulled a gun on a person?
Yeah, I think sometimes that, which I think is a legitimate criticism. I think
know
that
20 years is a big time, and I'm being told I'm unnecessarily strict. I think Ellen's new boyfriend should be in jail for a few decades. This guy sounds like a real piece of shit. But I think 20 years is enough. That's what they're shitting on, and you're doing good things. Now what the fuck are they doing? You ever write back, what the fuck are you doing? It's so great.
No, because you would think, would Oprah write back, what the fuck are you doing?
Thank you. Oprah is my spirit animal. Thank you.
You write back, thank you for the opportunity? That's what Oprah would do. Oh, God damn, you got me again.
When I first I tried to engage with everybody. Like, you know, when I had like 10,000 followers, and I was like, I wanted to engage with everybody. So I had conversations, and I got to see that shift. Like, I got to see people be like, oh, I'm just really angry and nobody will listen to me. And this guy's willing to listen to me. Like, hey, like, I'm not so angry anymore. And I actually saw that happen, because I think that's all anybody wants, is to be seen and heard. But some people continue to go, and the really stupid ones, like, oh, you're fucking ugly. Like, okay, great, I'm ugly. But it's the ones where there's like an insecurity that like they play on something. Like, I remember, oh my God, this one guy, he drove me nuts, because every video he would attack something particularly. He's like, you're such a narcissist. Like, you got something for Courtney's birthday that you wanted. And I was like, oh my God, did I? Like, God, am I? Like, it completely played on every insecurity, and it drove me crazy. And finally, he was the first person I ever blocked, because I was like, I can't do this. Like, every day I'm like neurotic, and I'm in my head. Like, he's found some new thing to like play with. And
it was just a bowling ball, and I bought it from a guy named Jesse. I don't see what the big deal is.
What did you get her for her birthday?
A bowling ball.
I bought us both motorcycle to get our motorcycle licenses, like the training class, because she had said she and her sister were supposed to do it 7 years ago. Her sister did it, and she did it, and she said, oh God, I really want to do that. And I wanted a motorcycle, so I was like, hey, let's do this together. It's an experience. And she has assured me that, like, no, she really liked it. And then, oh my God, he did it again. So for Christmas, she told, I kept trying to figure out what she wanted, and I didn't have a lot of money, but she does CrossFit. And so she had said, oh, I really want a good jump rope. And I was like, okay, fuck, I can get a good jump rope. So I got her a good jump rope. Oh my God, then it was like, oh, you only bought her a jump rope because you want her to be in shape, because you just want a pretty girlfriend. I was like, Jesus Christ,
wow.
I don't know what to do.
A jump rope and a salad.
Yeah. Oh God.
Are you able to spend time by yourself? Are you comfortable with it? Did meditating help, and you're fine either way with people without, or can you sleep through the night?
I went to a dormitory about 10 months before I got out, and so I didn't get a single moment away from people for that whole time. And getting out, I was immediately like, you know, my mom picked me up, and then Courtney picked me up from there, and then I met my mom again, and I was around people. And I remember it was like a day out or 2 days out, I had to go into CVS by myself, and I was like having a panic attack, like trying to pick stuff out and looking over and like wanting somebody to help. And when Courtney and I were living in separate places, I would go home alone sometimes. We were together like 6 nights a week, but that one night a week that I was alone, like I would just lay there. Like, I started actually doing like TikTok lives, because I was like, all right, I can interact with people. Like, this feels more comfortable. And it's so weird, because for all those years, all I wanted to do was be left the hell alone. And then now it can be harder. I think I've gotten to a balance, but like I work from home. And so I'm here with the dog, which is great. I mean, he's an obstinate old, you know, chocolate lab, but it can be an adjustment. It takes some time. And I do find that as long as I meditate, as long as I stay grounded in the things that are important, I can be adjustable. But no, I mean, sometimes those old fears and those old kind of like, you know, demons come up, and yeah, that's tough to deal with.
What does Courtney do for a living?
She's a reporter.
Oh, right. Still, okay. Good for her.
She left TV. She was for a period a managing editor of the Seaville, the local newspaper, and now she has a drive time radio show on the local radio station.
Do you get nervous when she interviews inmates?
That's a good question. I don't know. Well, so here's the weird part. So this is why we both like had this doubt early on. We didn't realize this. When I was at Buckingham, I was at Buckingham with a guy named Jen Soaring, who is this
By the way, I don't like
fame.
that it's called Buckingham, because I keep thinking, it's like Buckingham prison.
Yes.
You know, they say it. They go, welcome to the palace, everybody.
Yes.
Exactly.
Watch your step, or you're mine.
So we were there for our Jens was there, and he had this international case where he and his girlfriend were convicted of killing her parents, and then they ran to Europe and were on the run, and there was this international thing about whether they could be extradited and possibly face the death penalty. And so she did a podcast about this. She's done a podcast about this for like 1.5 years or 2 years. They've gone in this deep dive. They've got DNA evidence tested. They've like done the most amazing thing you could imagine. And then it turns out Jens and I were like, you know, not necessarily friends, but we were buddies there. Like, we read books and traded books and talked about things. And so her thing, she was like, oh my God, like, is he just like trying to find information from Jens to like, you know, ruin my podcast? And I was like, is she just trying to use me as a source so you can find out about Jens? But she had that side of it. And we kind of bonded over that. But otherwise, I don't think she's gone back inside to talk to prisoners. Yeah, I don't think that would be an insecurity, but I don't know. I'll have to stay with it.
We don't need. Why fuck around? Well, life's hard enough. Is your dad around?
No. So my dad died in 2006.
Damn. Were you guys close?
We were
at
close.
the time?
Yeah, well, I guess the only like emotional relief I had was that he had moved to Costa Rica, which has always been his dream. He just retired, cashed out his pension, and was just like, I'm moving to Costa Rica, like ran around with the shirt off, like wrestled crocodiles, did whatever the hell he was going to do. And like, so at least I know the last 1.5 years of his life, like he was doing what he had always dreamed of doing.
Okay, good. You guys would write letters and shit at the
Yeah.
time?
So, like, one of the things is people who are from other countries or have family in other countries, you only get 3 or 4 phone calls a year. Like, that's the only time you can talk to your friends or family. So you have to, like, schedule those, and they're ahead of time, and they have to set up, like, prepaid accounts in the other countries. And so it was, that was, like, I got to talk to him, I think, 3 times or 4 times before he died. But yeah, he came back up once. We would write letters. We had talked. We were going to play chess by mail because we're like, oh, I got 20 years. Like, this would be a great way to do it. But that didn't end up happening. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting to hear parents' response to this, right? Because today we were biking. We were in Central Park, and this kid sort of slides over and doesn't pull over enough. So she ends up stopping in the middle of a lane. And of course, that means that she's almost being crashed by a couple people. Her father jumped right into, I told you to move to the side when you're doing this. And she's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, she just almost got crashed into by an adult. She's already dealing with that. She's panicking because that's what you do. You panic when that happens for a second on a bike until you kind of regain. And he's still yelling at her as they're riding a bike, as she's gaining. And you just kind of wonder, like, if this girl shot at anybody, what the fuck would be his response then? It's so giant for a mistake. So it's like, oh yeah, your father wants to play chess with you. And did they have an initial response of, who are you? And how do we continue?
I mean, my dad blamed himself because my dad had been a criminal for most of his life and then cleaned up and become a substance use counselor and, like, kind of been on the right track. But I mean, there were years that he was shooting cocaine in the bathroom in between, like, counseling sessions. He was not necessarily the best example.
Did you know that?
So
But you don't want your therapist falling asleep on you.
I mean, he was really attentive.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, he had raised me with these stories of the life that he lived, like, for better or worse, because they were, like, they were better than fairy tales. My mom was horrified. But at the same time, she just had always been, like, reactionary. She'd always been trying to fix things. So this was just something else to fix. Like, this was her chance to see what she could do. And she did. I mean, she allowed me to go to college. She helped connect me with people that, like, built this kind of community of support and following. And if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't be where I am. I mean, that's really my central message, is that, like, I was able to succeed because I had people who loved me and gave me opportunities and support, and most people don't. And that's not about them or me. That's about the opportunities they have.
Right.
Wow.
I remember my dad, I did bad checks as a kid, so I'm in jail. My dad visited me, and these things would last like 5 minutes where I'm like, I get up and leave. That's the only person visiting me, and I'm like, Dad, I said it was a fucking mistake, and I get up and leave. Meanwhile, I was scanned by a loan place. Meanwhile, as an adult, he gets scanned. He gets scanned by these Nigerian, scam emails. He thinks he's a king loves him, and I'm like, looking back, why couldn't you understand? Perhaps it was a scam loan. Anyway, good for you. You have a nice family. That's sweet. Fuck my dad. By the way, big news. I got my driver's permit. I passed the test.
My goodness. So the written test you pass.
Well, how hard was it for you, Jesse? Do you have to get new ID and all this shit out of prison?
Yeah, so I went to DMV the second day out or third day out, and they were like, well, since you haven't had a license in 10 years, you don't exist. You got to start over.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is going to be really tough. Like, I'm living really far outside of town. Like, I don't have any transportation. And, I said, well, look, what if I can come up with a speeding ticket? Because I had a speeding ticket when I was younger. Like, if I can bring you
I got
a speeding ticket,
shit from the court.
Yeah, does that prove that I had a license? She was like, yeah, that would actually work. And so I went back and forth. Finally, a lady was like, look, do you got some time? I said, yeah.
Sorry. The back and forth, I picture he's making speeding tickets.
Yeah,
back and forth, nobody will stop me.
But no, so she calls me in her office on the lunch break, which is not like normal DMV behavior, calls the records department, calls the trainers, calls everybody, and it's like, all right, well, I haven't gotten anything, but I'll give you a call. 2 hours later, she said, look, I called in a favor. They pulled out your paper records from the records department in Richmond. Like, we found that, so we'll get you in. And I was like, oh my God. So then I go back the next day, and there is no power for anywhere on that strip. Like, just this whole strip of the city, it's out. I was like, well, this is the only DMV I can go to because they're the only ones who know I exist. Right. So I was like, all right. So I go back the next day, and the DMV computers are down statewide. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, but the whole point was, in 4 visits, I guess, I got back after that. I walked right in. I had to do a little written thing. I had to go through it, and I walked out with a license, which was amazing because Yeah, I didn't know it was going to work, and I had heard horror stories about people having to get their learner's permit. And this is not New York where you can live without a driver's license. You can live with whatever. Like, we live in nowhere. Like, there's very little public transportation. They've moved, so many people outside the city. It doesn't serve those that need it most. It's an unfortunate situation.
I just let my shit expire, but all of it, over the pandemic. And yeah, it is a thing to try to show receipts that you're a person. I didn't have the right ones. The electricity comes in my landlord's name. We don't give ourselves pay stubs. You start to realize what people are talking about why you don't need ID to vote. You shouldn't. But yeah, and I'm doing well enough where I can't prove it's me, and I'm like, the IRS can find me. Am I free? Am I off the grid? So anyway, I finally got the regular ID, not a license, was able to get my Social Security card, just got my VA card, and just this morning at 6 a.m., I took my online permit test and passed. Now, is it the first, did I have to do it at a normal time earlier and fail? Yes, but they let you do it again in 6 hours. You know what? There's some tricky ones on there. I'm not going to lie to you.
What tripped you up?
A diamond-shaped sign is a what? I'm like, I don't know. Whatever's on the fucking sign, it will tell me. I'll do that. It's a hazard sign. Okay. What if it has a number on it? Would I go that speed limit or go, nah, the sign's wrong. This is a hazard sign, not a speed limit sign. That's rectangle. Like, you can't even picture this shit. I'm like, rectangle? What the fuck is a rectangle sign? I probably typed in "do not enter." It's a speed limit sign. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna know when I see a speed. What's an exit sign color? And I'm like, I don't even understand the question. And then they're like, wrong, it's green. And I'm like, oh, the exit sign, you mean? So the first time I kind of rushed through it, thinking it doesn't matter how many I miss. But then the second time at 6 a.m., I paid attention and happened to have a little cheat sheet.
So that meant you took
your
first
other
one at
computer.
midnight? Yeah, like
you
three
could
drinks in at midnight, like, oh, let me take a DMV test.
Yeah, and I got it. It's bad. I think I was on weed when I took it. Yeah, it worked out.
I guess.
Yeah.
And then now you have to take an actual driver's test?
Now I have to take the driver's test, and that is the final step on being a complete human being.
Well, what drives me crazy though is you can take your driver's test in an automatic and then get a manual car. Like that, you don't know how to drive. It's just like the motorcycle class.
Right.
You take this motorcycle class, you never get out of second gear or go 25 miles an hour, and they give you a license to ride a motorcycle. It's a terrible idea.
I'm honestly surprised that they're letting people ride these little mopeds, on a rental with an app. That I can't believe you could rent a bicycle that has an electric aspect to it, and then just pass it around from one to. New York City has become a bike city, and we're sharing bikes. I didn't know that growing up. Here, it'd be able to like, your turn. I'm done with this bike. It's your turn.
I would be trying to get some of this ID, Jesse, and if I would have known that prison's an option.
I tell you, so they're supposed to let you leave with all your documents. Like,
hard.
They don't do it, but you could have had your documents. It would just cost you a few years of your life.
A blind person legally has the right of way when crossing the street when he is, and the answer was, led by a guide dog or using a white or metallic cane. Well, if I see a guy with a gray cane, fuck him.
It's a good point.
But if I see white or metallic, I will respect them.
So does this mean you're allowed to hit a blind person if they don't have their cane?
Yeah, if they're walking like an asshole against the sign, you have the right of way, yeah. Most answers were, do the right thing always, but sometimes they just found a way to trip me up. A bicyclist differs from a motorist in that he isn't required to what? Insure the bike. Well, I don't have one. Who gives a fuck? I hope he knows that. What do I care? I hit somebody, I go, I hope for them they have insurance.
Was there anyone like Keith in prison? Like just, yeah. What's it like to be a Keith in prison? Can you paint that picture?
So everybody thinks that prison's full of tough guys. There are so many people who do their time by just being funny or just being like entertaining or just being something.
I brought up the VA for Christ's sake. Yeah. Okay. Do we like these people? Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is everybody wants to be as comfortable as possible. So if somebody can make you laugh, if somebody can do your legal work, if somebody can cook well, yeah, they're going to do well. It's just like out in the world, it's a service economy.
That easy. All right, so you're
Did,
welcome.
did you like the funny guys? Were they actually funny? Yeah.
We had a couple that were really, we had guys that like everybody loved just because they would come around and they would make your day. They would make you laugh. Like no matter what you were going through, put a smile on your face.
Wow. Okay.
Here's another one I missed. What does alcohol do to your driving skills and judgment? And I said, it's bad for your driving skills, but it's good for your judgment.
Huh?
It's like, it's actually worse for all of them? Oh, boy. What are the colors of a sign which tells you the distance to the next exit of a highway? Green with white letters. How's a human being supposed to know that without seeing nothing? I don't think anybody would have passed this.
Well, what are you're gonna follow the blue signs that say to turn left?
Right.
They're gonna be the color they are. I didn't even know it was green across. Is that a New York thing? I don't know. I never really.
For us too. I think it's an interstate thing.
Never really paid attention to the color of it.
I missed this one at first. You're getting on a highway which has a very short entrance lane. The safest way for you to enter the flow of traffic is what? And it's
what's the options?
I don't remember that, but the answer was wait for a large gap in traffic and then speed up quickly. I didn't get that right. I didn't think an answer would be do anything quickly. Be a little bitch and but be doing the right thing. I thought that was the answer to everything.
I was 16 when I took this, and I didn't study because I figured I've seen signs in cars and they do things right. I think I got one wrong, and I think if I were talking to my parents, they'd still be making fun of me. It was, what does H stand for? And I'm like, hotel, because you want an indication. And why do we need to know where hotels are? I'm like, I don't know. There seem to be signs when we're on a road trip that there are hotels coming up. I don't know. And they're like, it's hospital. You might want to know where a hospital is. And I'm like, just send me to prison. I'm sorry I bumped into the other bicyclist. Why am I being reprimanded again? I got one wrong. I got my license.
Hospital would be that Red Cross symbol, I would think. I missed that one at first, too.
Yeah.
Why is driving on an expressway different than driving on an ordinary street? You must think faster and handle your vehicle more efficiently. Well, I was doing it the whole time. How about that? I missed it. Anyway, I got it now, and I bet your state has a cheat sheet also.
Your cheat sheet is a laptop next to your computer.
You could just
your phone.
You could just look right at it. Nobody's really watching you at 6 a.m. That's true. You just point on the other tab. You hit find. Rectangular sign, speed limit. You go, duh, I knew that. So you don't think it's cheating, and then you go back, click, and now you got a permit. Very exciting. It's very exciting.
Well, congratulations. So how long before you can actually take your test and be a driving member of society?
2 weeks, my friend. 2 weeks. And then I'm in one of these cars from the future. And then I got a car. Now I'm going to be able to drive it. I'm very excited.
Wait, so don't you have to take your road test? In 2 weeks you take your road test?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Get ready.
We're all dead.
Yeah.
You can pay extra. You pay like right? $2 a month, and your car can make these sounds.
Jesse doesn't even know you and knows to get off the road around you.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be real, real good.
Hey, actually, I'll tell you the real danger around where I am. So we have traffic circles. They're like the new thing. And we have old people who apparently are too old to know what traffic circles mean. So they stop. Like, they stop before they get on, even when nobody's there. And then they, like, stop halfway around. And it's like, oh, my God, you're going to cause so many accidents.
Yeah, that's real dangerous.
That. You have the right of way if you're already in the circle. Everyone knows that.
Well, luckily, cars have lights that go on that say, hey, I'm stopping or I'm turning. That's very, very helpful. But bicycles, oh my God, one time I stopped so short in my bike that I flew into, I don't know, whatever front was right below my stomach. I crashed so hard I had a black and blue for like a week. I crashed into my own bike because I stopped so fast.
By the way, the test says anything you want to add. And I wrote, yeah, if the law says I can't drive anyone to an abortion clinic, then I promise not to do it. It's God's will. Fuck them. So God. I think that's what put me over the edge. You know, I gotta tell them whatever they want, I'll do it. I see Jesse doesn't just stop with the prison reform, right? I clicked on something and it led me to why it's wrong to not cover abortions in this country. Am I right?
Well, I talked about the criminalization of abortion specifically. I talked about that we have this idea that if we criminalize abortion, it's going to stop it. And I related it to the criminalization of drugs, which has cost, billions and billions of dollars and caused, millions of lives to be ruined and essentially accomplished nothing. And if we want to do that for abortion and we want to think that that's moral high ground, well, I think it's hypocrisy and it's kind of ignorance at the highest level.
Yeah.
Yes. Legalize it. Drugs, abortions, sex work.
Should all drugs be legal? Jesse Crosson.
I was on the fence on that while I was in prison. And then since getting out and talking to everybody that I have who's had, just terrible traumatic experiences with the criminal justice system, as well as, the empowerment of gangs and cartels and the problems we have, I think having a regulated legal drug system would make a lot more sense, because all those billions of dollars we pay the ATF and we pay the DEA and we pay these other people, we could use to provide treatment or fundamental social services to people who need them.
Is it weird that people, in general, it seems, they understand, how many people have done drugs and, you only have so much on you. But it seems like everybody can understand we do arrest the cartels. Do people not know where drugs come from or what?
I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, especially when you look at the storied history of certain drugs in our country or drug laws. We've essentially have an entire policy that's based on historically racist application of law, because that was who it benefited. And we have more alcohol-related deaths than drug-related deaths, with the exception of fentanyl or heroin. And yet that's not illegal. I mean, it's just, it's like play acting. It's like we have inertia. And I think that's the reality of prison. Because if you were to take the prison system and explain it to somebody who had never heard of it and basically say, hey, we're going to take people who can't function in society, lock them up with all the other people that can't function in society, and then let them out, they would be like, that's a terrible idea. You're guaranteed to have more problems. But we've been doing it for so long, we act like it works. Same thing with the drug policy. Same thing with a lot of the approaches.
A pregnant 16-year-old Florida girl was denied an abortion after a judge ruled she was too immature to decide if she should terminate her pregnancy. But she won't be too immature to have the baby, though. That's the thing.
Or too mature to, spend most of the rest of her life in prison or any of the other things.
Right.
She'll be more mature in 9 months, I can tell.
Yeah.
The teen had not established that she was sufficiently mature to decide whether to terminate her pregnancy. What could she have done? Played with her gum? What am I doing? What? What could she have done? This is the world, Jesse. Welcome to it.
Well, so my theory is, if we're going to be imposing control over people's bodies, we should mandate.
Is your dog
vasectomies.
trying to get your attention?
Yeah, the dog is going crazy.
Yeah.
But we should mandate vasectomies for every boy as soon as he goes into puberty. If we're going to mandate control over anybody's bodies, it should be the boys, because that's reversible. And every boy should have to have a vasectomy until the point at which he proves that he's capable of being a parent. And then that way we don't have to worry about unwanted pregnancies, and that way we don't have to worry about any further problems, and then we can, control men's bodies.
New shit. I love it. Stamped.
And that's why people shit on you online, you're saying, right?
Exactly.
What do you want people to know? How do we check out this cause of prison reform?
You can check out second-chancer.org or Second Chancer on all social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. That's second_Chancer. And yeah, I'm just trying to raise awareness, and I'm trying to share human stories, because it's just if you look at the Feed the World Fund, they don't give you statistics. Nobody cares about statistics. They show you one starving kid. And so my goal is, if I can show you one reformed prisoner, one person who's gotten out, who's doing something with your life, this is what we can have. This is what people getting out of prison can look like if we give them the opportunities and the support and the resources they need. And, hopefully we can reach people ahead of time so they don't have to go to prison in the first place. But as long as it's a thing about statistics, nobody cares how many people die, as long as they don't look like them or talk like them or come from their neighborhood or related to them. And the more we can make that about, actual people, the more people are going to listen.
And by the way, follow Jesse, not just because of the reform. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm up to my eyeballs and doing good in the world. I totally get it. They are incredible videos that you put together, entire stories done in 1 minute. And if you happen to help him with his reform on the way, then good on you. But he's the funny guy from prison. It's not funny, but it's very, very, very interesting. And I can't believe that you figured all this shit out in a year.
It's a process. Trust me, every time I get I was on a Google Meet this morning with a grant writer. We couldn't figure out Google Meet. I was glad that I wasn't the only one who couldn't figure out Google Meet. That made me feel a lot better. So it's just, it's a collective
worse
learning
for our
process.
society. Yes, you have an excuse.
Right. And I
That
got
is-
my permit.
It's my get out of jail free card. I was in prison. I don't know how to do this stuff. Hey, can you order the Uber? I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
Well, good luck to your friends. Good luck to your dog. Something's going on. I would check that out. Shout out to Courtney. And thank you so much for your time. It was very nice meeting you. Kenda's going to Atlantic City. Exciting stuff. What's the plan? Did you write down a budget?
Yes, the plan is mostly there's a beach there. We're going to be there for one night. So there's a beach there, a lot of time spent on the beach. We're going to do one tournament for about $60 and hopefully win that.
Nice.
If we win over $1,000 in that tournament, we stay one more night.
Oh, it's up to them.
Yes, but that has never happened ever. Although I've only ever played like a couple tournaments. I did pretty well, but I don't know. We'll see. Most of it is still distancing and trying out instead of the buffets where either you get too gluttonous and you want to throw up, or you feel like you were robbed because you didn't eat enough. We're going to skip those. We found a couple things that are like more local, like the taco stand or something. Things that, because unless you eat a buffet out in Atlantic City, there's nowhere to eat. There's like really fancy restaurants or all you can eat. And it's just, okay. So we're going to figure it out. And win
will eat. All right. So just spend $60. They will eat. Follow social media to see if she's back early. How about that? Okay. Good luck. Follow us on YouTube, of course. That's how you saw this video if you watched it. And we're going to put up an older silent trailers that you can watch. Those are always fun. So be subscribed to YouTube, the channel, of course, being Keith and the Girl. That's it. Jesse, thanks again. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.